Tom Pelissero now sitting inside his car, mid-hall pass. We just determined that, radio audience. He's on the way to a lake house hanging with college buddies this weekend, and I appreciate you taking a few moments for us. Tom, thank you for that.
Always, Rich. No matter where I am, no matter what time it is, I'm always here for you.
I appreciate it, but this is the time of year where you can tap out, right? Like you're not worried about cell reception, right? Like this is where are we in the clear, Tom?
I got a call from a GM earlier a little bit ago.
Yes.
And we were talking about various things that could transpire sometime in the coming weeks here. And he said, "Are you going to be out of cell service this whole weekend?" I said, "Well, there is a stretch for about 10 miles around the prison in Stanley and Boyd, Wisconsin, where it gets edgy. I've done this drive a number of times. Outside of that, I think I'm in good shape."
Very good. Tom Pelissero understanding his surroundings right here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's outstanding? Like what can actually pop in the next week? Do you think, Tom? Anything?
The big things we're waiting on are going to be, start out with the pass rusher contracts. Obviously, the Aiden Hutchinson situation has been ongoing for quite some time here. They're not an unmanageable distance apart, but the Bengals' history is that they can take a long time to move forward here. I anticipate we're going to get resolution before camp, but nothing's a guarantee. Same thing with TJ Watt and Micah Parsons. All three of those guys, especially Parsons and Watt, because both of them are going to be attempting to, in all likelihood, going to outshoot the $40 million per year on Myles Garrett contracts. Those are more related. Trey Hendrickson, it's not going to be up there. He's not trying to be over $40 million per year. But all three of those contracts, plus Shamar Stewart and that situation in Cincinnati, all those things sometime between now and mid-July when teams are reporting to training camp, you would anticipate one way or another are going to get resolved, whether that means a new contract or it might mean, somebody not showing up on time for the start of training camp. Obviously, you've got the Jaylen Ramsey situation, and there's all kinds of rumors every day about where he's going and who's interested. The reality is we're sitting here, June 19th, and we don't have a deal in place for a player who plainly has no future in Miami, wasn't there for minicamp, was excused amidst ongoing trade talks. They haven't gotten a deal done there yet, but that's one that certainly we're going to be watching between now and training camp. And then, beyond that, you've got some of the other contract situations. Lamar Jackson, do they find a way forward? That's not really pressing because he's got several years left on his contract. Do the Lions jump into the pass rusher market and get Aiden Hutchinson done? All those sorts of things, plus, the other holdout guys, Terry McLaurin, Jonnu Smith, all those situations. A lot of the people, put it this way, Rich, the people I've talked to within the league predominantly have been on the beach or on their way to the beach. They're all doing the same thing this weekend that I am. Doesn't mean business can't get done. Cell phones do work on the beach, but these next few weeks, maybe more kind of fits and starts before we get past the 4th of July. And that's when a lot of times that pressure point starts to rise because most teams are reporting to training camp July 22nd. Sometime between now and then, we're going to have to figure out exactly what's happening.
Yeah, man. So Jaylen Ramsey, is it I know there's a lot of Rams fans here thinking, well, he won a ring here and let's bring him back here. Would that be a fit? Do you think there's a there for Ramsey to come back to Los Angeles? Tom?
I believe Jaylen Ramsey would love to come back to Los Angeles. I believe the Rams would welcome him back at a certain price, but you heard Sean McVay reference it from Maui the other day, just saying there's some complications with getting something done. And that specifically is Jaylen Ramsey's due a lot of money, cash and cap this year. If the Dolphins are going to do a deal with a team like the Rams, they might have to eat some of that money. And it hasn't sounded like they've got a great appetite to eat the money. Some of the teams that might take on all the money, that might not be places Jaylen Ramsey wants to go. He's kind of dictated these things a couple of times already, from Jacksonville to the Rams, from the Rams to Miami. Jaylen Ramsey has shown throughout the course of his career he's willing to push certain buttons and pull certain levers to get to his desired location. Any player's greatest leverage is withholding your services. And if Jaylen Ramsey makes it known, hey, I'm not going to show up there. You trade for me, I'm not coming. I'm going to be a problem. You're going to be dealing with this. That team's probably not pulling the trigger on a trade.
Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Rookie quarterback situations. Cam Ward's going to be a week 1 starter. I think we can all agree on that. He says he's going to throw the F out of the football between now and the start of training camp. That fired me up, fired everyone up around here. We just got off a Zoom with our buddy Daniel Jeremiah, who thinks Jaxson Dart has shown enough already to put him in the sooner rather than later starting category. What are you hearing out of Giants minicamp that's going on right now this week, Tom?
Everything's been positive on Jaxson Dart, and obviously this is the first quarterback that Joe Shane and Brian Dable have been able to put their name on and go and draft that guy. They re-signed Daniel Jones, but that wasn't their draft pick. Jaxson Dart is their guy. Jaxson Dart, quite frankly, is going to play a big role one way or another in the future and the longevity of Dabes and Shane in New York. At the same time, they brought in Russell Wilson to be the starter and to be the guy until whoever at the time they were going to draft, it ended up being Jaxson Dart, until that person was ready to be the guy. I fully anticipate we're going to go into this offseason. Russell Wilson's going to continue to take the vast majority of the number one snaps. He's going to be QB1 as we go into training camp and as we enter the first preseason game. However, we've seen situations evolve in the past. There have been plenty of times where a team has said, hey, we've got a guy in place and we're going to stick with that player. And then all of a sudden you kind of look at it in the preseason and it's like, okay, you're probably going to put the rookie on the field sooner because he just looks better. I mean, there's a myriad examples of that over the course of time. And the question always becomes then, are you better off rolling that guy right out there in week one? Or is it, okay, we kind of committed to this, there's probably not the greatest comparison for Giants fans, but just one that comes to mind is when the Bears signed Mike Glennon and then drafted Mitch Trubisky. I was at that first preseason game and Glennon got the crap knocked out of him. Trubisky came in and he looked really good and he's fast and he's got a big arm and all those types of things. That were the reason Trubisky went as high as he did. They still went with Mike Glennon into the regular season, but even after that first preseason game, there's questions to the coaches, there's questions to the players about, hey, how soon could Trubisky play? And sure enough, I think he got benched like halftime of week 2 or something and was out there. That's just kind of the pressure points that rise. Certainly in a market like New York, that is going to be the case as well. And this is a really interesting offseason for quarterbacks because we've also got a situation in Cleveland where, the public side of things is going to be very, very noisy as we go through training camp in the preseason with the Browns.
Yeah, you're right. That's not a great analogy for Giants fans. You're not wrong.
I would happen to be there.
I remember. Was that the one where Glennon just flipped a ball? Was it like a pick six? It was awful. He was trying to throw it away. It looked terrible, and we talked about it on game day morning, and Warren Sapp called him Mick Glennon. That's what McGlennon is how he referred to Mike Glennon as McGlennon, and that's a nickname that is stuck even to text chains today amongst all of us. That's McGlennon. I remember that, man. Not what the Giants fans are looking for. That said, though, you mentioned Cleveland, Tom, and Daniel mentioned he wouldn't be surprised if one of the rookies is a week one starter and Pickett gets sent packing or just doesn't make the team somehow. And it's Flacco as the adult in the room with 2 kids. What do you think, Tom? Here.
I would say this. The hardest thing for the Browns to do week one is start one of the rookies. The hardest thing is to get one of those guys ready to go and roll them out there in week one. Just because of the transition that's involved in getting those guys ready. They're 3rd and 5th round picks for a reason. Joe Flacco's a veteran. You know exactly what you've got in him. Kenny Pickett also has started games. For better or worse, you know what you've got in him. If you start Dylan Gabriel in week one, then the moment something goes bad, everyone's going to be saying, why aren't you starting Shedeur? And if you start Shedeur in week one.
Oh, we just lost Tom. We'll take a break right here from Tom. If you start Shedeur in week one.
I think he's going to say the same thing. The minute something goes wrong, why didn't you start Gabriel?
Right.
Feels like it's kind of lose-lose there for either guy if they start right away.
But Tom Pelissero, I think, has zoomed back in. You there, Tom?
So We're good? Turns out,
yes,
if you prop your phone up on the dashboard of your car,
yes,
up against the coffee cup, the sun beating down causes your phone to overheat.
Oh, no. Oh.
So lesson learned, should have done this in the first place. We've got the laptop.
It's all good, Tom. Tom, this is great. This is just fine. This is also position number 3. You were outdoors, then in the shotgun seat. Now you're behind the wheel of the car.
This is the Kama Sutra of interviews right here,
ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my God. Definitely did not need that visual.
Wow.
Tom Pelissero's
Kama Sutra.
So let's talk about what you were saying about the Cleveland Browns. You were saying, and if you start Shedeur, and that's when Your phone overheated. Tom, finish with your thought. There?
I don't know exactly where he lost me, so let me say this.
Yes.
The hardest thing that the Browns can do is start one of the rookies, just because you're talking about guys who went in the 3rd and 5th round for a variety of different reasons, including the style of offense that they're coming from. You're talking about ramping them up, devoting enough reps to those guys through the course of the training camp and the preseason to feel comfortable with them, which are reps then you're not giving to the veterans here. And also trying to overcome the fact that in Shedeur Sanders' case, he comes in behind, just in terms of the type of offense, the way that they geared it toward him at Colorado, the number of negative plays that he had. We know he's very tough. He's very accurate. But you're talking about asking a guy to do things that he just didn't have to do at the college level. Dillon Gabriel, who they drafted 2 rounds before that, let's say Dillon Gabriel is the best quarterback coming out of training camp. Well, the moment Dillon Gabriel, trips up here, guess what's going to happen? People are going to be calling for Shedeur. If you go back to 2012, the Seahawks take Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. It was bumpy in the early portion of the season here, but what were they going to do? Bench Russell Wilson and put in Matt Flynn or Tavares Jackson? They didn't have the bright, shiny object there. And if you put Shedeur onto the field, are you really setting him up for success, knowing that there's a growth process that he needs to go through here? So I know that, there was news made of him getting a speeding ticket for going 101 miles an hour. What I've heard in terms of him being in the building has been all positive. They really like Shedeur. He works hard. He's got a good personality. All that stuff has been good. There are probably things, we talked about this, Rich, a lot before the draft, where, again, I'm not blaming this incident on anything else, but it's, the questions were about how is he going to do when he gets outside of the environment of having his dad there with him all the time? How is he going to do when there's different accountability structures here? He said all the right things. He's done the right things in the building. You'd like him to make better choices, obviously, off the field. Maybe this is just a very early kind of wake-up call that, hey, these things are going to happen. You can't do that, Rich, if you're any quarterback in particularly when you're a 5th-round pick, who, if your name weren't Shedeur Sanders, would be going, is that guy even going to make the team? I don't think that's going to influence the decision here. It's something that I'm sure they've addressed internally, but it's all part of the growth process he's got to go through here. I would say it's wide open. There is no decision made in Cleveland. It could go a lot of different directions. If Shedeur is the best quarterback by far in training camp, could he be the starter week 1? Sure. I would just say it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest option of the options the Browns have in front of them.
All right, and last one for you, sitting there in the state of Minnesota and making your way to Wisconsin for your boys' trip for the weekend. What is the general sense of J.J. McCarthy's spring, readiness for the summer and the fall? Tom.
It sounds like it's been as expected with J.J. McCarthy. He's handled things well from a leadership perspective, from a picking up the offense perspective. It's still the unknown. We haven't seen him in a game situation. We haven't seen him get hit or any of that since the preseason opener last year where he suffered the torn meniscus. There's no, overt or even internal signs that they, have any real concerns. They just, like any other young quarterback, you just don't know how it's going to translate when you get into game action. The one thing they saw last year in August was very good. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, despite suffering an injury in that game, he looked really good and comfortable on the field. You've heard Justin Jefferson, among others, saying positive things about J.J. McCarthy. He does have a way about him that makes it easy to like the guy and to root for the guy. He's coming in with a ton of expectations. A team that won a whole bunch of football games last year with a guy in Sam Darnold who they didn't offer a particularly, compelling contract to because they knew that J.J. McCarthy, they still had a lot of faith in him, a lot invested in him to be the future quarterback. We'll find out, as we get into the real games, how founded that confidence was. But I have not sensed that is shaken at all. They fully intend and believe that J.J. McCarthy is going to be able to hit the ground running here in the early portion of the season.
And then lastly, what are you hearing about the first week plus of Rodgers being with the Steelers full-time in the playbook, communicating fully with the coaching staff as the starting quarterback, how it's going to work, whether he's into the offense is into him, all that business? What are you hearing first blush, Tom?
It's been really good in the building so far in the way that Aaron has treated people, the way that he's gone about his business, getting to know his teammates. He's been good to be around, which that's what the Jets, that was always the word out of the Jets too, was like nobody disliked
this guy. Now, obviously, things went sideways with the owner, among others, as time went on. But in terms of like his teammates, like people liked Aaron in New York. There was a bad taste in his mouth from the Jets experience. He now has the chance to wash that out in Pittsburgh. He's clearly motivated. He said himself, this is one for his soul. Everything I've heard is that, behind the scenes, he's been good. And on the field, he can still snap it. You see it even in those little snippets and warm-ups where, that arm action, that arm twitch that he's always had, that's still there. Can he move around? Can he go in and out of the pocket, extend plays the same way? No. I mean, at this stage in his career, he's 41 years old. He's not going to do that. But, the guy that they saw, even in very limited mini camp reps, that's the guy they're hoping that they have. You just have to, cross your fingers that for the first time in a number of years, Aaron's going to avoid being really banged up in the early portion of the season, which he's going to be able to address by getting the football out of his hands. And then is he going to be able to sustain that, not for 2 practices in June, but through the entire July, August, the entire regular season, and they hope into the playoffs. There's not a lot of precedent for that. There's not a lot of precedent for quarterbacks outside of Tom Brady to play at a high level beyond age 40 and play full seasons and stay healthy and stay on the field. And obviously Brady's a really rare case. Aaron just, he's saying the right things. He's doing the right things so far in the building. When it comes right down to it, Rich, he's going to be fighting against 20 plus years of his own instincts of holding the ball and waiting for something and checking the play and throwing on the designed run play. There's some of that he's going to have to take out of his toolbox, frankly, in order for him to stay healthy and avoid those hits that accumulated. But he's got a better offensive line. You can certainly argue that he has the opportunity to have as good of a supporting cast in terms of the skill position weapons than the one that he had with the Jets. And you're just hoping that everything kind of, it's the perfect storm and this guy's able to stay on the field.
Tom, drive safe. May your cell reception stay strong and your phone still stay silent.
Phone's back. TJ has not texted me yet. You'll be heartened to know that. So apologies for the technical difficulties.
Oh, brother, all good, man. Be safe, lake safe. Enjoy your time. You deserve it, pal.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, fellas.
Tom Pelissero, everybody. Say hi to the fellas in the lake for us, everybody, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.